When I was a kid growing up, my junior high and high school years, there was an elder in the church where my dad was the minister who fits the category of ruling elder. Uh, Honestly, he was one of the meanest men I ever knew. Uh, he was the uncle of Mickey Mantle, which at first I thought, what a cool thing, till I realized he had been so mean and consistently rude to Mickey that Mickey said, I'll never go to their house ever. We have to bear in mind that Mickey Mantle was a boyhood hero of mine. If I could have ever got an autograph directly from Mickey Mantle, I would have been on cloud nine. My feet wouldn't have touched the ground for a month. So that he was this Brother Mantle guy was just he. I don't ever remember seeing the man smile. He was married to the sweetest, dearest woman, but he was just golly. I can you tell I'm really not over Brother Mantle. He's dead, been dead many years now, and in fact, the church finally folded, and the building has been bulldozed down, and the lot, the last time I drove by it, was empty and vacant. And honestly, I know this sounds harsh, but it doesn't. I mean, there's no sorrow in that for me because, well, frankly, the people who poured positive into me were not consistent with the nature of that church. I mean, they were kind of the anomaly. Anyway, my view of elders was that their job was to tell the minister no, that they would. Their basic deal was they just criticized whatever anybody else did, and any significant event, any significant change, especially change, had to go through them. Then I got into ministry myself, and I encountered some men who fit that category. But I'm grateful that most of the men that I worked with as elders when I was in located church ministry for 45 years were not like Brother Mantle. They were men whose hearts were, first of all, they wanted to serve Christ. They wanted to be useful, and they wanted to do whatever they could to help his family, the church, move forward and be healthy. And I'm very grateful for that. Honestly, some of these guys were way better at that than other guys. I have the experience where in the way the churches I grew up in are organized, you have elders and you have deacons. You have generally more deacons than elders. And the elders, in the churches I grew up in, again, and this is one of the things that I think needs some cleanup, but I'm not the guy to do it. All I can do is throw rocks at it, is that it's set up on a democratic society model. It's set up with the elders as the Senate and the deacons as the House of Representatives. And there are more of the deacons than there are of the elders, but really in terms of the power of the two, the Senate has a greater power. The elders have the greater power. Well, anyway, what got me off on this whole thing about elders and deacons is what Peter writes as he opens this last part of the letter that he wrote to the churches. He writes in what we have as 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 1, "To the elders among you, I appeal to you as a fellow elder and a witness in Christ's sufferings, who also will share in the glory to be revealed. Be shepherds of God's flock that is under your care, watching over them, not because you must, but because you are willing, as God wants you to be, not pursuing dishonest gain, but eager to serve, not lording it over those who entrusted to you, but being examples to the flock. And when the chief shepherd appears, you will receive the crown of glory that will never fade away. To the elders among you, I appeal as a fellow elder. The term elder in the church world today lacks a contextual center that it had originally. See, elder, if you take the literal meaning of elder, what does that mean? Well, I am the elder of 3 brothers, meaning I am the older of 3 brothers. In a clan, the elders are the oldest members of that clan. Elder in Peter's day was a very family context. You as an elder in the church, that the meaning of the term elder would have been carried over from a family context, and for the church it was carried over from Judaism, where the elders of the tribes, the older, and this was, I don't know, you can make your own judgment about this, but the truth is women were not included in that nomenclature. Elder is a masculine term, and elder in that sense for the Israelites was the older men within the tribe of families. So in the church, the elder would not have been a young man. I'm not saying in our churches today an elder can't be a young man. That's not what I'm saying, but I think sometimes we fail to look at the term elder and realize a couple of quick things. No, wait a minute, you already know. I almost have no quick things. First thing about this idea of the elder, it's a family term. This reinforces the idea that I feel so strongly about, that the church is God's family. He organized it as a family. And when the term elder is assigned to these leaders within the church, it reinforces the concept that the church is God's family. Because elder was a term carried over from a family context. And the second thing has to do with experience and wisdom. One of the assumptions that went with this idea of being an elder in a family was that the true elder was more experienced and on the basis of that wiser. And those who were young didn't have the base of experience that elders had. We have become a culture that values elder as the older, wiser, more experienced, less and less and less. I grew up in the 60s. At that point, there was a tipping point. A lot of sociologists say it was either 64 or 68, that the tipping point occurred where culture moved toward an ageistic slant toward youth, where you have to be an old person to remember this, but I remember one of the slogans in the 60s was never trust anybody over 30. Holy smokes. That was a huge statement from younger generations to older generations that you don't have anything to offer us. So don't lead, either get out of the way or follow. Preferably just get out of the way. Well, that never actually took root as the central concept of my generation, but it did color the way we interpret life. Now, even in leadership literature that I read, and it still has an appeal for me, and I still read it. One of the concepts is young blood. Young blood, young blood, bring in young blood, bring in young blood, new ideas, new energy, new enthusiasm. There's nothing wrong with that. That's true. Bring in young blood. But one of the difficulties is there are a lot of enterprises that bring in nothing but young blood. And when a man or a woman reaches their 60s, they become unuseful because they can't relate to current culture. All they do is live in the past. I get that. Been around those people. Don't want to be one of them. But I will tell you, I have, because of my age, my experience, I have seen most of what is going to happen in one form or another already take place. Right? Have I ever seen COVID? No, but I saw the SARS thing. I saw swine flu. Okay, that's a similar kind of thing. Have I ever seen this kind of political unrest? Well, for crying out loud, I was alive during the Watts riots. I was alive during the Civil Rights Movement. I was young, but it's not like I was living in a root cellar somewhere. Okay, is that the same thing as what we're seeing today? And for instance, in Portland? No, that's not the same thing. And I don't tend to imply that it's the same thing, but it's similar. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're a younger person, and honestly, I don't know that there's any younger people that tune in So Care with Stevie Boy. But if you happen to be that one, don't disregard the wisdom and experience of older people just because they're old, okay? If you're an older person, then don't disregard your experience. Because I think those of us that are of an elder generation, we have something worthwhile to speak into our culture. What we have to do is be careful. I'm preparing. By the time this gets posted up, it will already be in the past. But I'm getting ready to do a thing I'm very excited about at a church here in the Oklahoma City area, where I'm going to talk to parents. And as I was kind of filtering through some of my ideas out loud, my wife gave me a real important, I won't call it a warning, I'll just call it input. She said, be careful that you don't become a cranky old man about these things. I don't want to be a cranky old man. I want to be an older guy who's already raised his kids, who has moved through a useful, I'm going to even call substantial career in helping people and honoring Christ. I'm not done. I haven't reached my goals, and that's important. I don't want to come across as a grouchy old guy, but I have experience, background, and that gives me at least the potential for insight that can be helpful to others. And I want that insight to be available. What I don't want to do is force it on people or criticize them for not, taking my side on things. But this whole thing about the elders, there is the value of older Christian men and women who have valid experience and insight because of that. And it's interesting that in the early church, that was a given. I mean, that was an assumption. I wonder if it might be a wise thing for the church in the world today to at least run through the filter of that idea. Who in their gathering, who in their family, church family, would fit that category. If you're an older person, don't discount the experience that God has given you. Now, if you're that guy or that woman who's lived the same 2 years 32 times in a row, that's not who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the man or woman who has continued to grow in their faith and their walk with Christ and their maturity as people. Don't discount your value to the family of God. Next time, we're going to talk again a little bit more and more substantially, I think, about the elders in the church and what that means to us. So I look forward to connecting again with you this way on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.